Thank you, Shinge Roshi. I appreciate the opportunity. So good to see you all. Before I get started, hopefully everybody can hear me. I wanted to take the time to thank those at Daibusatsu, Hoenji, and Soboji for holding space and keeping the spaces going. It's such an effort and it's such a work. And I look forward to being at DBZ in about a week, or about a week and a half, actually. So I just want to say thank you for all that you do, because it's not an insignificant thing. As we get ready for Obon, I was actually going to talk about my favorite poem by Arthur Rimbaud. It's called A Season in Hell. And the first page and the last page pretty much get it. But today, there were some circumstances that changed the scenario. And so I have a saying that I like to use. Some people know that I'm in 12-step recovery. I do refuge recovery as well. I've been in recovery from addiction for 34 years, and codependency, going to Al-Anon for 11. So the expression that I like to use is the details of our pain are all different, but in my experience, the suffering feels the same. So the details of my pain is recently, I work for also my natural Buddha field is working with addicts. I've been a professional counselor, program administrator, clinical director. And so our medical director, who was a very, very close friend and mentor, Dr. Joseph C. Bisholti, little more than 60 days ago, died. I didn't even know that it was possible to have an aneurysm in your stomach. And unless you're right there in the hospital at the moment that it happens, your chances of survival are very small. After that, Jumpo Roshi, who was the one who accepted my application and brought me to DBZ, who at the time wanted to use the open space program. And one of the things, there was Chuya there at the time, but he wanted to do a version of helping addicts because he was in recovery. And so he wanted to try that. And so Jumpo, gone. His was kind of slow motion, but still, it hurts. And so on Monday, my Al-Anon sponsor, her name is Ruth Frisco, she lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she is a musician, a dance instructor of some renown. In Columbus University of Ohio State University, there's an actual grant and scholarship there related to Ruth, and For the third Monday in a row, she went to this jazz club to go dancing. I didn't even know you could dance to jazz. That seems like an oxymoron to me. And so what happened is she went. I was actually in, she does this like online group. She's Buddhist, by the way, and has practiced in Thailand for a while. So she went to the jazz club, was dancing on the dance floor, the dance instructor, and collapsed and died. Quite unexpectedly, quite suddenly. Eight hours before, I had been talking with her. There was no indication, no sense, no feeling of feeling bad at all. And so this death of my sponsor, for me, is extraordinarily painful. But I have a sense that all of you can relate to the suffering. I'm fortunate, how I came to Zen. This could sound a little hard, but it's Rinzai Zen. I was absolutely stupid. Coming there to DBZ, meeting Jumpo, my children call me the Dharma dork. And so, I'm not entirely hip, but so the first time I met Jumpo, he was on Beecher Lake and he was coming in and he was rowing the canoe. And as he brought the canoe up to the shore, I was picking it up to help, pull it in, and almost knocked Jumpo out of the boat backwards. That's not how you want to start a relationship with the vice abbot of the monastery. Not wise. That said, some of the ways, coming in, I just, my experience with Zen, DBZ, Al-Anon are the same. Just no knowing, no idea, and just fumbling around a lot. And looking at the Dharma Hall at DBZ, I knew who the Buddha was. I didn't know that to the left of the altar, his name is Munju Basatsu. And the sword cuts through the delusion. And lesser known, perhaps, on the right-hand side, riding the white elephant is Fugen Basatsu. Universally worthy. All beings are universally worthy. And whereas Munju Basatsu, it's about this wisdom that Fugen is about wise action, that without action that's wise, there is no awakening. And so, talking about this and Ruth's death, she had this wise activity and this wise action for this person, and it's okay. I have permission from my daughter and my ex-wife to talk about this. But especially with my daughter and her addiction, how I actually ended up meeting Ruth was, it was after my daughter almost died. She flipped her car with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was driving 6 times, broke her neck. Her right arm which has quite a bit of metal in it. And her mom threw our daughter at us because we were separated at the time, working on a divorce. But she admitted that she was drinking and using drugs with Michaela. And since I was in recovery, she's your problem now, fix her. So a lot like a baby given to a Zen master and said, "Oh, is that so?" I did, and she got better. And after 77 days, her mom got mad because they were extraordinarily close, and it was triggering some things in her that she has since joyfully gotten help for. She removed her from my home, and Michaela went back into active addiction. And to be quite frank with you, with 24 years of recovery, I was 100% disoriented. And was perhaps even a bit suicidal, because I couldn't fathom everything that had gone on, because it was really so bad. If you saw the pictures of the car, it looked like someone took a very beautiful car and compressed it into the size of about a door that you would walk through. That's how bad it was, literally. So I moved to Ohio because that's kind of where my recovery tribe is. I really enjoy Columbus. There's a lot of wonderful things about it. And I ran into Ruth and was introduced to her, and she became my sponsor. And the first thing that Ruth said to me was, "An airplane cannot take off out of a hole. It would be okay if you built a runway for yourself." The other Ruthisms, you can be right or you can be happy. I've never met a happy perfectionist. Seiho, instead of doing what you normally do, which is always upping the ante on yourself, raising the bar, and driving yourself crazy, what if you took a temporary vacation from that, and for 1 week, see what it would be like to lower the bar on yourself instead of turning everything into an Olympic sport? What could happen if all these people that you always want to leave everybody in the room smiling as you're exiting the room and happy, and what if you stopped doing that and stopped accepting responsibility for what belongs to them? She once asked me, in the process of talking about that, which was, what would happen if you accidentally won them over? What would it be then? It was kind of like a koan, and she was very, in the know with that stuff. And I said, I have no idea. And she says, you'll be stuck having to win those people over every single day. So stop trying to win everybody over. Lower the bar, pick the easy ones, the ones who don't turn friendships and relationships into Olympic sports, then you could be way happier. All wise action. And my mentor, guide, and friend, that wave that coalesced, that was Ruth. Shogyo Mujo. Shogyo Mujo. Endless transformation. So I've been sitting with that this week, not sleeping very well, to be honest. Lots of zazen. It's like my brain has been 360 degrees, and there's just been this ceaseless stream of like downloads. I've just been writing it out, because that's the way I process, is just by writing it down. I don't even necessarily go back and read it, but I just write it down, because if I don't, it just stays in my head. So today, there's this thing I wrote after her passing, and it's from Zen Master Jushin, and it's from a book called Radical Zen. It's the sayings and doings. And student approaches Joshu and asks, what is Buddha? And Joshu, who is, his keisaku was his mouth. He could strike. He said, what is Buddha? And how I translate the word Buddha, and this is one of the things, I wanted to mention earlier, is we really, for me, at least in my practice over the last 33 years, I've been doing a lot of retranslations. What does this mean? Like, how would we say it in our culture? Not like back in the time originally of D.T. Suzuki, but today. And I've had fortunate to spend some time with some people who have helped with that. So the word Dharma, the abbot of Shakya Monastery, Kinjumpa Rinpoche, he said, well, the closest thing that you really have to America, to Dharma the way we actually mean it, would be grace. If you looked at Dharma as grace, that could be helpful. How I translate Buddha is kind of like Jiko in Japanese. It means universal identity of loving presence. So what is Buddha? What is this universal loving presence? And so Joshu replies, you are universal identity of loving presence. You are Buddha. And that seems impossible and improbable. There was a time when there were some things going on, and I was really captured in self-doubt. And then Ruth looked over at me. We were at this restaurant, it's called Kosai's. It no longer exists. But Ruth said, kid, you can't do it wrong. And I looked over my shoulder and I said, are you kidding? Do you know how many bad decisions I've made in my life? How can I not do it wrong? You're crazy, old woman. Give me a break. And because when she said it, it sounded the same thing as what Milarepa had said. I want to live and die without regret. And it makes me feel, or used to make me feel, the same way as when I looked at Fugen Basatsu, universally worthy. What could it feel like? What could it be like to be that? And so the way I've done that through the trajectory of my life is working with the American Untouchables. POCs, indigenous tribal people, addicts, alcoholics, people who have mental health issues, went to school, became a counselor, eventually became a clinical director, specialized in adolescent treatment. And started working with the people nobody else wanted to mess with, to discover within them that bodhisattva vow that all beings are universally worthy. The details of our pain are different, but the suffering is all the same. This bowl, by the way, that I have here, this was given to me by, some of you know her, Ginkgo Kathy Blackman Neosho, who was working with cancer, but she gifted me this bowl. This bowl, the reason why I'm using it today is it was made by Genki Takabashi Roshi. And the black glaze on it are from rocks that came from Dai Bosatsu's Endo Beecher Lake. And somehow he took them, melted them down, and turned them into a glaze. And the counterpart to this bowl was the last tea that he drank from, the sister of this bowl. I'm very happy to have it. And feel very honored that Genko Neosho trusted me enough to have it. So this thing that we're talking about, and I'm definitely going to leave space for discussion, but this universal identity of loving presence, it doesn't look the way today as it did the day before. It won't be the same tomorrow as it is today. One day when I was living in Seattle and I was training at Choboji and I was one of the residents there, I brought my daughter out there to try and help her get clean. Didn't work out. She was down in this place south of Seattle called Federal Way, and she was staying at a kind of hotel. And she describes this and she says it's all right to talk about, but she was engaged in prostitution, human trafficking. And she called me and she said, "Dad, I need your help. I don't want to turn any tricks today. Would you pay the hotel owner $25 so I don't have to do that today? I don't want to go out and get dope today." Universally worthy. That was an easy koan. Of course I will. No problem. It's not my moment to judge you. I'm your father. I love you 360 degrees. Bodhisattva's vow isn't about when things are easy. It's when they're not. This other woman who is sponsored by Ruth, wonderful woman, delightful woman. I call her super old timer, and my main fellowship that I attend, Narcotics Anonymous. And I was talking to Leslie that night. She was the one who called me. And she said, I don't know what to do. I don't even know how they found out, but there's this eye center and they're asking for Ruth's eyes. I have no idea how I should respond, or even if I should call them back. It's so my caller ID. And inadvertently, I laughed. I said, are you kidding me? Ruth would be ecstatic for someone to see through her eyes. She had so much life. If she put organ donor on her driver's license, it's probably because Ruth meant it. And Leslie laughed and said, oh my God, of course, of course, of course. Fugan, universally worthy. Who will get Ruth's eyes? No idea. Is that person worthy? Absolutely. Ruth would be joyful. I spent 10 years with that woman. Many hours sitting, talking, learning, discussing, learning how to live again. Talk about sesshin. The years of my daughter's active addiction was about 11 years. Try being on sesshin for 11 years. No breaks. Genjo Roshi, who gave me Tokuro, called my situation endless family sesshin. And that's exactly how it felt. That's exactly how it thought. Today, my daughter is clean 2.5 years. Last weekend, she was here visiting and making amends to her grandfather. She stole 8 guns from him, sold them to drug dealers, and used the money from the job and also from the COVID relief and paid her grandfather back, making an amends, the restitution, and also saying, Papa, I want to heal this relationship and I love you and I am so sorry. To some, that may not look like Buddha, but to her dad, I love what the sign says at the beginning of the mountain. Drive with reverence and awe. That's not a punchline. There's so much beauty at the beginning, middle, and at the top of that road that leads up to Dai Bosutsu Mountain. But in order to you know, and this is one of the things that I have not enjoyed in Buddhism and much of the learning over the years is they'll say, become Buddha, you will be Buddha, get enlightenment, Kensho, Satori, whatever, whatever, whatever. But the reality is there's nothing to get. We are it the whole time. There's no magic. You know, I thought there was smoke and mirrors. You know, uh, insufficient person. Let me wake up to Buddha nature so that I can become a 2.0 or 3.0 and be the person that I wanted to be. And the whole time, Edo Roshi, Jumpo, Genjo, Shinge Roshi, no, 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 moo, 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 moo. You have it. Work on just noticing it. That could be enough. I want to close my words before opening it with discussion. One of my favorite books, I know that he's not in our lineage, but he did love Zen Master Hakuin, is Kodo Sawaki Roshi. They called him Homeless Kodo. And my favorite book, other than this one, by the way, which you can't get, I got this when I first started at DBZ, Rinzai Roku. I wish it was still in print. It is fire. But Kodo Sawaki says in a commentary on the Song of Awakening, the Shodoka, he says, we can use a mirror to see our face and body, but how can we see our ego? It's enough to do zazen, zazen, zazen. Nothing compares with zazen for exhibiting ego. All our ugliness appears during zazen, the ego's ugliness, not our authentic nature, is what I would say. The more pure the zazen, the more clearly we see into ourselves. And the more clearly we see, the more the ego appears dirty, particularly the id. It's got a lot of fear, restlessness, irritability, disconnection, and discontent. He goes on to say, to truly know yourself, and by extension, what is not the self, you must do zazen. Dogen Kigen Zenji wrote in the Genjo Koan of the Shobo Genzo, to study the Buddha way, the way of universal identity of loving presence, is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And the part of the self that Zazen has taught me to forget is the selfish, self-centered, self-obsessed mind that's not real. It takes the reality, copies it, and hands it back, reconfigured in unreality. To study the self is to forget the self, and so to know what is truly not. To do zazen is to know oneself truly. It is the power of the Heart Sutra, the wisdom that is so profound and absolute that ego does not have the ability to even fathom it. So to end, one of my private things that I don't share with, because I do have an online presence, because that's how I run into people who are in trouble. And is I love to make origami. And the reason why is I tell people that recovery, addiction, codependency, Zen is not folding ourselves, but how is it that we can take these creases and these things, see through them, and unfold. But in reality, how long does it take us to get out of a place that we've never been? How long does it take not to be someone that we truly are not? Student asked Joshu, what is Buddha? Obviously, us. All we have to do, zazen, 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 turn down the volume level. It's not to, like one guy asked me one time, how do you get ego death? I'm like, you don't. How, if your ego died, how would you ever make it across the street, kid? How about keep the ego, use it as GPS, understand that here's the sidewalk, here's the oncoming traffic, there's the street, wait till the car passes, and then just keep going and don't litigate what the guy is driving or whatever, or narrate. Just move. For those who will be at DBZ for Oban, I look forward to practicing with you. As the Kese approaches, I look forward to participating in Kese. This place, DBZ, one way or another, has been my home. I am so grateful to Jumpo Roshi for inviting me in, because I honestly did not feel entirely worthy when I rang the bell at the gate. Thank you, Shinge Roshi, for the honor.